Is there life beyond the Celestion Vintage 30? Are there other speakers out there that can match the greatness of the legendary V30? Today let's explore some different kinds of speakers and compare them to the V30 as a baseline. The V30 is legendary for a reason. It sounds great, and it was obviously used on countless records and live shows throughout the years. It's a speaker that just works. And I use it a lot because it works. It sounds great. That's the tone that most of us are familiar with. The frequency curve of a V30 just works in the mix, and that's quite important. However, sometimes it does come to my mind that I need to try some different speakers. And thanks to Soubd Lab's Reflex IRs, we can safely explore some different types of speakers, and the Reflex platform is basically the ideal way of doing this. Now, they've just released 3 new speakers in the Reflex IR line. The Damon 60, which is based on a Hesu Demon speaker, the Lynch 50, which is based on a Celestion Lynchback, and the Andro 64, which is based on an Eminence Alessandro GA64 speaker. And of course, these speakers sound unique and they sound different from a V30. And the Reflex IRs are basically the perfect platform for trying this out. I'll explain later in the video why that is. But let's start right away with the first comparison. So what we're going to do now is compare the Damon 60 speaker from the Reflex IRs to the Djent 30, which is basically a V30 speaker. So a Hesu Demon versus a V30. Take a listen. Alright, that sounded great. So the cab and speaker tones that you heard there came from the Soubd Lab Reflex IRs. The guitar that I used was my PRS SE Mike Mushok baritone with the DiMarzio deactivator in the bridge, and it went through Helix Native by Line 6 with one of my favorite amplifiers, the Line 6 Badonk amp, with a tube screamer up front and a noise gate. And then in the IR block, I loaded up the IRs and basically switched in between the 2 speaker types. Now, I think they both sounded great. The Damon 60 sounded cool as well and different than the Djent 30 or the V30. It definitely had its own character going on, but it didn't sound too different. So I guess that this speaker from the 3 that we're going to compare today sounds the closest to an actual V30. But I did notice that the Damon 60 sounded very nice up front. So it had a bit more of a forward sound without getting harsh. So the mid-range characteristics definitely were different. And for this song in particular, I really enjoyed the sound of the Damon 60 more. I still think that the Djent 30 or the V30 sounded great here, but it was nice to hear a bit of a different flavor there. Really cool. And it's going to be great to have this speaker in my arsenal of IRs now. Sometimes when I'm demoing an amplifier or a plugin or anything, sometimes I just need a little bit of a different flavor, and it's going to be great to have the Damon 60 in my toolbox. So is the Hesu Demon or the Damon 60 better than the V30? I don't know, that's up for debate and it depends on your taste. Now earlier in the video I said that the Soubd Lab Reflex platform was great for this video and for comparing speakers. Why is that? Now, the whole idea behind the Reflex IRs is that they have a cabinet that was specially built to have as little impact on the tone as possible. So most of the tone of these IRs comes from the actual speaker and not really the cabinet. So the tonal qualities and the EQ curve of the speakers themselves will shine through more. And it's basically a more transparent platform, so you can really hear the differences between the speakers well. And with the Reflex IRs, they're going to keep adding new speaker types, and the enclosure will basically sound the same every time, and the only thing that will change will be the speaker. So far, they've released 6 speaker types, including the 3 new ones. So that's really cool, and it's a fun way to experiment with different speaker types. All right, let's compare the next speaker, the Lynch 50, to the Djent 30, or the Celestion Lynchback to the Vintage 30. Let's go ahead and check it out right now. Take a listen. All right, that sounded interesting as well. The Lynch 50 definitely sounded quite different to the Djent 30. For the tones, this time I used my ESP LTD EC1000T CTM in vintage gold satin through the Soubd Lab Amped dual plugin, which is based on a dual rectifier. And of course, I used a tube screamer up front to tighten it up a little bit. And in terms of the differences, I thought they both sounded great. The Celestion Vintage 30 or the Djent 30 speaker performed really well. It had that upper mid-range bite. But the Lynch 50 also had a very nice, cool and round mid-range going on, kind of like a roar. I like to call that 3D. That's just my own personal terminology there. But it had a really cool character, and the top end is a little bit more smooth as well. So if you're not a fan of top end fizz, or you need an amplifier that needs a little bit of taming in the upper mids or treble region, and also like a nice and full and round mid-range, the Lynch 50 is a great speaker to look at. Now, is the Lynch 50 better than the Djent 30? I don't know. Again, it's a matter of taste and a matter of preference, but it's definitely fun and interesting to hear a different type of sound. And I'm going to say this again, it's going to be fun to have this speaker in my arsenal from now on, or my IR toolbox, so to speak. Now I want to try another different type of tone, and this is quite a different one. So what we're going to do now is compare the Andro 64, or the Eminence Alessandro GA64, to a V30. And this time I'm going for a very low gain tone, so it's basically a broken up clean tone. Let's take a listen. that difference was very significant. The Andro 64 sounded much warmer and round, and with a rolled off top end, and the Celestion Vintage 30 sounded a little bit more spiky in the top end there. And this was a single coil pickup in my ESP LTD Sc-20 guitar. That's a pickup that sounds quite bright, so it needed a little bit of taming. I used the Soubd Lab Amped VX30, which is based on a Vox, and then of course I loaded the IRs. In this case, I think that the tone definitely benefited from the different speaker, mostly to roll off and to warm up that top end, because it was a little bit too spiky sounding with the V30. So yeah, that was an interesting one too. So once again, a nice speaker to have in the speaker IR toolkit. So the Reflex IRs have a great feature set, very easy. You get about 5 mixes or mic blends, and that's what I use mostly, but you also get a bunch of microphones with different positions. You get file formats for various platforms and various bit rates as well, and you also get MPT files, which are minimum phase transformed. So yeah, an easy feature set, but still quite versatile. And the price is also very attractive. Definitely check out the pricing at the link below on mlsoundlab.com. Let's take a very quick listen to some of the different included files so you can hear what range of tones these packs have to offer. So, is there life beyond the Vintage 30? Sure. I mean, it all depends on your taste. There are no rules. I will still love and use speakers with the V30, both in the real world, but also in the IR world. However, as I've said multiple times in this video, it's great to have other speakers in your toolbox as well. And it can be fun to mix it up. And especially for somebody like me who has a bunch of amplifiers, sometimes it can be very useful to have different options because some amplifiers just react differently and stuff. A very bright amplifier could benefit from the Andro 64, for example, or an amp that needs a little bit more mid-range in the lower mids might benefit from the Lynch. So yeah, I like having these options and I like what the Reflex IRs offer me in terms of versatility and also ease of use, and they just sound great. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Is there life out there beyond the V30? I'd love to know. Thanks so much for ML Sound Lab for sponsoring this video, but as always, of course, all thoughts and opinions are 100% my own. Please also drop a like and subscribe down below, as that really helps the channel out. I'd really appreciate it. And of course, you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram and check out my Ko-Fi web store where I sell quad cortex captures. And of course, if you want to support the channel in another way, you can also visit my affiliate links, which I will also post below. Thanks so much for watching and I hope to see you soon. Cheers.